So welcome to all of you out there tonight. Thank you for joining us. And here on the panel tonight, I am your host. And I also have with me Jim Schaefer. Most of you know him as
camera somewhere.
Pastor Bot Jim.
Yeah.
He's our Autobot pastor on Sunday morning.
Not a transformer.
He doesn't do anything cool.
AI. Artificial intelligence.
Yeah. And also joining us for the very first time, Karen Oder. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you for leaving your house and coming out and joining us.
Yeah, it's my first time out since 20.
Yeah. A couple trips to the grocery store, but other than that, you've been pretty much hunkered down.
Been there.
So,
yeah.
Now I did learn today, and I didn't tell you beforehand that we were going to do this, but I found out that Jim and Karen are neighbors.
Oh, you didn't know that?
Not really. I didn't. So Karen told me today when I was talking to her on the phone that you guys are neighbors and hardly know each other.
That's
and
right.
so to me, I feel like that's a grand lesson in just how awful Christians can sometimes
Clearly,
be at
this
neighboring.
neighbor does not love all of his neighbors, right?
You may ask my wife how much I'm actually home. that is part of the problem. And then my time at home is generally designated to set chores by my wife. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not sure you really live there because I have never actually seen you at home. So I've only seen Mallory
fair.
and Faith there.
Yeah.
No,
Gone
so
quite a bit.
We've been there 4 years. Right?
Yeah, we'll be coming up on 4 years this fall. Actually, this December. So.
So really, it falls on me because we've been there almost 17 years.
I was going to say, I mean, isn't the rule of the neighborhood that the newcomer
Right, that's
is
true.
welcomed by those who have been there? So,
Right.
so I take it there's never been any cookies
There
or
has
brownies
not
delivered.
been a welcome package.
Yeah, or
No.
a cake. I mean, you make these fancy cakes.
Well,
It's like-
the thing is, the Holts kind of carry the weight of the entire neighborhood in
They
that
do.
respect. So,
That's true.
but yeah, no, we drive because Mallory, of course, she's big on design and houses and everything. We always admired your very well kept home and property. Everything's just beautiful. And then when I found out that's where you guys were like, oh yeah, they live in the red house. That's awesome.
That's totally my husband, by the way, not me. A little me, but just the stuff on the porch. The rest is him.
well, it's not like you guys really have anything in common, right? I mean, what would you ever possibly talk about?
I know. It's true. It's true. Not the
Given-
Navy.
Given the trajectory of your lives.
Right.
Yes.
The church. The neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
Nothing in common.
I don't know if we should tell everybody the name of the street that you live on so they can avoid that particular neighborhood. This is not where you want to go unless you don't want to be known by your neighbors. Anyway, good to have both of you here, all kidding aside. Those of you that are joining us online, if you're joining us on Facebook or on the online app, feel free to text in any comments or questions. This is an expert panel that we have here tonight. So if there's anything that we can answer, we'd love to do that. But we're gonna spend a little time talking about the message this past Sunday and a little bit of this other series that we're doing called Road Trip to Truth. So
All right.
you guys on board for that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Let's do it.
Otherwise, we can talk about
Yeah.
your pets and other things that are of interest to you. But well, Karen, since we haven't seen you in a while, why don't you just
Right.
kind of give us a little insight into what's happened in the Oder household over the last couple of years?
Last couple of years, yeah. I came home from working, and Joe also took an early retirement, and so we've been there, gardening, camping, getting in each other's way. We've getting to know each other in a totally different season of our lives. So it's been an adventure for sure.
I haven't gotten any phone calls for pastoral counseling, so you're getting along.
We're both still living. We're both still alive. Yeah. No, it's good. It's a good season of life. It's definitely a change, so it's been good to COVID has been good in that respect, that, kind of forces your relationships to grow or die or kill. You're going to kill each other, or
This is true. You're not
you're going to
wrong.
grow. It's kind of forced interaction. So, we kind of had practice that first year, and then the second year we've, had a lot more practice, and, it's good. It's good.
Yeah. Not driving each other crazy.
Oh no, we do.
Oh, you do?
We do.
Oh.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
It's not pretty.
No?
No, you don't hear us, Jim?
No.
No, I'm kidding. No, it's good. I mean, we have our moments just like anybody does, but we figure it out. You know, I have a sewing room. I can go in there and do whatever I do in there, and he likes to do yard work clearly, and so he spends time out there and doing his thing. And then then there's a period of time during the day that we spend together and we talk and chat and watch Father Brown. So that's our exciting day, our exciting life.
What is
It's a series on PBS.
what is Father Brown? It's on PBS?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just a period drama. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
what period?
I think they're in the 50s.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it's a crime drama thing. So,
Ooh.
yeah.
Sounds like fun.
yeah.
All right.
Anyway. It makes retired life sound enticing, I can tell. Everybody's can't wait for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's that time of life you wait for, right? You dream about, and then it comes, and you go, oh, this is definitely a new experience. But
Some of us feel like we'll never get there.
yeah. Yeah.
Like how would that ever happen? But
Right. Sometimes it happens by surprise, Josh.
by surprise, yeah, you're forced
Yeah.
into it.
That's kind of how we entered retirement. So, but
Nice.
Yeah.
So, do they have the nicest yard on the road now, or
Yes.
they do?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what you get for having the time to spend.
that's
on
what
it.
happens when you retire. My
Yeah.
son.
Do you get nasty letters from the neighbors about your lawn or anything, or you
I
pretty
should. I should. But no, everyone's been very patient with
Good.
our yard. We started with,
Your yard looks nice.
well, relative to what it was when we moved in, which it's come a long way, put it that
You
way.
can actually see your house now.
Yes, that was the major improvement. So there's a long period of time of periodically renting large machines from Taylor Rental to either cut down trees or pile up trees or pull out stumps or fill in holes. And eventually we got to grass seed, and I'd say about 50% of it took. So that's fair for now, and we'll get the other 50% someday.
You have a nice fire pit in the back and the
Yes,
garden.
Mallory has done wonders, and the backyard looks much nicer than the front. We'll say that much. But yes, we've got the fire pit, we've got the garden. It's fantastic. But
And then once he gets steps up to his front porch, you can come visit him.
yes, that was another. There were a few home improvement
Okay.
items that had
I
to be
can
done.
jump, so I'm fine.
Yes.
You don't
Oh.
have to wait for that, but
Yeah, we figured out that however long before we lived there was some rainwater coming in the front door around the door jamb, and you kind of pull back a little bit to see how far it's going, and all of a sudden I'm in touch with Doug Williams about, hey, so how do I build a new wall to my house? The 15-foot by 10-foot hole in the front of my house last year, which was a great COVID project, really. But the front porch was sacrificed in that, and we're working on trying to figure out what we want to do, like a stone front porch, or whether we're gonna try to find somebody to build us new steps or whatever. But we get in and out of the house through the garage just fine. So we haven't
He has
been
an
in a huge.
amazing gym. He has an amazing home gym in the garage.
It's a nice home gym. Does not get nearly enough use, but it is there. It is nice.
for as little as I heard about each other, Karen seems to have a pretty creepy level of knowledge about like the
Well,
ins and outs of your home.
I know
so-
Mallory.
yes, she knows Mallory. She knows Mallory. So
Mallory and I are friends.
That's good. All right. Well, I'm glad that at least, through Curtis Lake, PrimeTime, we were able to bring you two together. So
absolutely,
this would be great. This would be great.
Go.
All right. So this past Sunday, we were talking about stewardship, in the grand scheme of things. But I think a little discussed topic I had shared with the church that I have never preached a message on the subject of saving. And that's a huge part of stewardship, as I think we learned. The proverb we looked at was Proverbs 13:11, says, "Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. And so whenever Mallory complains about the lawn, Jim, you could just remind her that this is something that has to grow over time.
Yes,
Right.
that's it.
I mean, that's how you build a
exactly it.
healthy, strong
Yes.
lawn. And that's how we build healthy, strong finances, right? It's this leveraging this thing called time, and just doing the little things that we can do over a long period of time that's ultimately going to get us to the place we want to be, which is, financial health, right? So, Karen, I'd like to start with you. You have admitted that you are at this stage in your life where you've kind of gone through this. You had years where you and Joe were earning income, right? So you have been where Jim and I and many other people are, and now you've entered this new phase where it's you're not earning. Yeah, you're not at work earning income, and so the success of today really kind of depended on past time. So since we're talking about wisdom, I would love for you to just share some wisdom and insight as to like what's that journey look like for you? What have been some of the challenges in saving and planning for the future? What would you say are maybe some of the successes in that?
Well, I'll have to say that neither one of us have been big spenders, so that's a plus right there. That's kind of just our nature. But in all reality, we always have had forward thinking with our finances. He had bought a new car before we married, so we had that when we got married. And then after we got married, I think a couple of years and a couple of children, we needed a bigger car, so we bought a new car, and that was so exciting, to have a new car and have room in the back seat for car seats and all of that stuff. But after about 6 months, we started really feeling the pain of car payment, right? And 5 years of that car payment, and so we really worked diligently to get that paid off, and we just both felt so rich after we made our last car payment that we had that whole extra amount of money each month.
Sure.
That we thought, we're not going to do that again. So part of what we learned through that experience was that we have never purchased a brand new car since that day. And I think that was like 1988. So every vehicle that we've had, we buy pre-owned. It's usually a couple years old, low mileage, but you're paying less than half of the new price point. So that has really helped us in our finances. We've also have used our credit cards very limitedly. Like any purchase that we made that went on our credit card was never just for the sake of convenience. It was always a planned purchase. Like, well, if we needed washing machine and dryer and we didn't have enough money to pay for it out of our savings account, then we planned to put it on there, and we always paid off early. So we used them frugally. You have to have a credit card. You can't do anything without a credit card. So you can't do everything cash. But so that's kind of how we looked at things. We planned things, and we always saved. Saving even if it was just a little bit. But I think part of that was that we save, but then we add more to it. Like whatever you feel like you can save, if you feel like you can save $100 out of this pay period, try to save 125. Try to save 150. Let it be a little bit uncomfortable, to get that savings up. And through that kind of lifestyle, we were able to make some property purchases. So they were investments for us. So eventually, when we came to the time of our lives where we were ready to buy a house, we had that ready, set ability to sell a piece of that particular piece of property and have a down payment for a house. So it was just a lot of forward thinking. And then even when we came to retirement, we knew probably 5 years out that Joe was going to have to medically retire from his job. So we just really started working towards getting our mortgage paid off. Get the mortgage paid off. We knew we were going to need a new vehicle, so we got a pre-owned vehicle, but new to us vehicle, and and fortunately we were able to pay cash for that. And so when he retired, we were really basically debt free. So I think that's the key, really, is just the forward thinking, what's coming.
Yeah.
You know, what's coming. We probably, how many years do we put into our work life? I think it's like 40 to 50 years you're working. So you have that whole span of time to be thinking about what's coming down the road. And, you know, that's the wise
Right.
way to look at it, is
Yeah.
what's coming.
Yeah, the problem is a lot of people don't, right? And not for a while. I mean, it's this awakening, hopefully, that
Right.
people eventually hit, and that's certainly one of the things that I think we're trying to appeal to. And when we talk about something like this, is just it is the wisdom of what it means to maybe put off today something that you want, right? Because
Right.
who wouldn't want the new car? Like, that's the decision you made.
Right.
The new car would have been awesome.
Right.
It would have been so awesome.
Right.
Right. So much better.
But it's only awesome for, like I said, like the first
A little bit.
6 months.
'Cause then it's
And
not new anymore.
And then it's not new.
Right. Now it's used.
And it smells like French fries, and
Exactly.
you know, and you still have a lot to pay on it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So did you have anybody, is this just stuff that you guys figured out on your own? Did you have anybody that you feel like really helped you along with this? How did you, given the plans that we have to make for the future, sometimes we need professional help,
Right.
right? Most people at some point, especially,
Right.
as they save their money and, maybe it grows to this place where they don't feel confident in managing it themselves. How do you decide, when it's time to bring somebody in or listen to another voice?
Right. I think the two experiences that we had really made a difference in our lives. The first one was being in the military as young people. We saw a lot of people fail financially, and Jim's probably has been a witness
Oh,
to
yeah.
that too.
Certainly.
I remember our neighbor, her husband was on a boomer submarine.
Yep.
So they have a regular schedule of coming and going. And so
Is a boomer submarine like full of people in their like 50s and 60s?
No, it's not.
Oh,
It's not the boomer.
because some of us don't know what a boomer.
No,
Oh, okay.
I don't have an explanation for it either. Joe was on a fast attack.
Yeah. So very quickly, there's
Very-
the two major types of submarines that we have are the fast attack submarines and the Trident submarines or the boomer submarines. So the fast attack ones are the World War II type movies where you see them shooting at ships and doing all sorts of spooky special ops and stuff like that, and whatever else. And then the Trident boats are the ballistic missile submarines, so they're our nuclear deterrent. All they do is go around in circles, and no one knows where they are, and they just wait for a message that hopefully never comes to launch nuclear missiles. So, but they never hit any ports or anything else, and yeah, they always got made fun of by I was a fast attack guy, so they had like a lot. Those boats are a lot bigger, so everybody got their own rack, and there's a lot more luxury there. So, but yeah.
My point in saying is that they have a regular schedule.
Sure.
But they had the option of getting paid ahead. Like if they were going to be gone for 3 months, they could get 3 months pay up front. Well, so this friend that I knew that was a neighbor, all of the money was gone within like 4 weeks, and
Yeah.
she had no money for groceries and to make car payments and all of that. So we witnessed that, and we witnessed that whole thing kind of fall apart until he got home, because the Navy doesn't send you home because your wife ran out of money. You have to figure it out. And so we witnessed things like that. And then, so I think maybe Joe was in between 8 and 10 years, and he had re-enlisted. We had a re-enlistment bonus, and we thought, what do we do with that? Do we stick it in the bank? What do we do with it? And so we saw a financial planner at that point, and she helped us make some goals and see where we wanted to be, how far out is retirement, and then what is beyond that, and helped us just a savings plan, helped us to start saving in that regard. And then, after that point, we kind of just figured it out. We knew we didn't want to be in debt. We knew that we wanted to plan some trips, take some trips, and, buy a house eventually and help our kids as much as we could. And so we just kind of aimed towards that. It hasn't all been smooth riding.
Sure.
There's been some bumps in the road, and unexpected things come up. So, when those things come up, it is nice that you have a buffer there
Right.
of money to be able to resource as needed.
Yeah. That's great.
But yeah.
That's great. Well, one of the big questions that we had, that I was kind of looking at in preparing for and communicating this message is like, does saving money honor God? And so we talked about, and we even before we started tonight, just kind of talked a little bit about this idea of much of what we read in the New Testament, especially, it doesn't necessarily talk about planning for the future. I mean, you're talking about people that had this view that the world was going to end any minute, right? The apocalypse was supposed to happen during the first generation of Christianity, right? Everybody was expecting Jesus to return any moment, and we even have and are encouraged by all these passages of Scripture that talk about just living by faith and walking day by day with Jesus and according to the Holy Spirit, and certainly that's how his disciples lived. And so here we are 2,000 years later. The apocalypse has still not happened. Jesus has not returned, and we find ourselves living the lives that we're living with hopefully a mindset that we are custodians or stewards of what God has put into our lives. And so, what do we do? How do we understand saving and planning for the future in this context? I'm guessing that if your story was really different and you didn't do all that planning and saving, and now you're in retirement,
Right. It'd be
a mess.
It would be a mess.
It would be a mess.
Right. If we still had a mortgage payment, if we had a car payment, we would be scraping by.
Yeah.
We really would be.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So Jim, what is saving meant to you and Mallory? Sorry to put you on the spot if this is a real sore subject for you, but
no,
that's what we do on PrimeTime.
Right,
so.
right. No, certainly not as sore as it may have once been. I have personally learned a lot of my own lessons with money by making those mistakes, and thankfully, I've learned from them and also sought out wisdom. When I was doing my bachelor's through Liberty University, they gave the option to do the Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University for free for students, and I went through that. And while I can't say I all of a sudden turned my life around 180 and followed all those baby steps right off the bat, those principles have stuck with me, and the way they've manifested themselves has really been helpful in our lives. And so yeah, I mean, really just having the ability to save and not being just not just paying the debtors week after week after week, but just even just being a little bit in the positive. It allows for space and time to be the people that we want to be and honor God the way that we want to honor God and that we should honor God, and we can use our time, that our other resource, time, wisely as well, and not spend it just worrying about money or worrying about how are we going to pay the mortgage this month or the rent this month, or should I really just ignore the credit card people calling? How long can I get away with that?
Yeah.
Or even just thinking like, gosh, what can I do on the side, or let me go down my list of buddies who I know do work on the weekends and see if I can make a couple $100 extra or whatever. And it allows so much more time and just freedom.
Right. I think, Josh, you really hit the nail on the head when you said on Sunday, people think that if I can just live within my means, but you said, no, you have to live below your means.
Absolutely.
And that, I don't think people really think that through. They are living from paycheck to paycheck if they feel like they're making it, but to live like a little bit lower than that, think about, do you really need 3 cars? Or do you need 2 cars? I mean, we lived a lot of our life with 1 car. I would take Joe to work and, do what I had to do, pick him up. Of course, he was gone a lot of the times. I had the car to myself. But even so now, we sold Joe's car, because do we need 2 vehicles now that, we're not working? So,
boy, you guys are putting a lot of eggs in this relationship basket. Boy, I hope you do
it works
actually
out.
like each other, because like you can't even get away now.
No, we spend time in the car together. No. That's a whole nother podcast, Joe.
Right, okay, we'll do that.
That's a whole nother podcast.
We'll do that.
But yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the point of that was that it's, and one way I'd like to just reinforce the spiritual side of saving is that, like, think about saving this way. We're setting limits. So any of us could have limits that are imposed on us, right? So look at your paycheck, look at the money that you have, and you see limits that are imposed on you. It's like, all I have is all I have.
Right.
But I think, as you think of yourself as a steward of this stuff that belongs to God, right? Because we talked about the perspective that, well, my money really isn't mine. It doesn't belong to me. I'm just managing it for somebody else, right? That's the biblical concept of stewardship. And so, there's, I think, a spiritual component to setting limitations for myself, of making the decision. I mean, hopefully we do that when it comes to our diets, to what we eat. I mean, there's probably times where I'd like to eat more because that tasted so good, but my body doesn't need it. In fact, if I do eat it, it's going to hurt me, right? So we do practice certain disciplines in our lives and say no to ourselves in certain areas, and our money has to be one of them, right? So I can live with the limits that are imposed on me, that are created by just the reality of what I get and what I have, or I can go a step further and I can establish what those limits are, right? That's the idea of living below my means and not just at my means. We talked about how what that requires is choosing not to buy something that I can buy. Right. So I have some money and I can buy that thing, even without doing it irresponsibly, even without having to use a credit card that I can't pay back and borrowing from the future in order to get that thing. I mean, that's a whole other problem. We know that. I'm just talking about, no, I have the money for it, but I'm going to choose not to.
Right.
Like, when was the last time, I mean, if you could even think of something, like, when was the last time you thought, I'd really like to have that and I could have that, but I choose not to buy it?
Well, I just got a new phone.
Okay.
Right. So I've been using iPhone 6, right? So I'm behind a few generations. So, but I need a new one. And so I could have got the newest model, right? But it just didn't feel right to me to spend that much money on a phone, right? So I just bought there's an edition that it's a SE.
The SE, yes.
The SE, right? So it's definitely less expensive, but I think it has the guts of an iPhone 10. So it does the same. It's just not called that.
Right.
Right. It doesn't have the prestige
Yes.
of a 10.
It doesn't have 14 cameras that,
Exactly.
create these incredible portraits.
So yeah.
You're probably not doing a lot of portraiture of Joe anyway, right?
No, not.
So, Jim, can you think of anything, or do you just impulsively buy whatever your eyes look on?
No, I mean, I have resisted the urge to buy a front porch for a year or so, as many times as
it all comes back to the porch.
I could have purchased a porch. Yes. So, I mean, I can't think of anything specific other than the porch. Besides just sometimes when Mallory and I would talk about what do we want for the house. That's always our big thing, is home improvement and what can we get by with. What do we really need? What do we? I mean, front porch is trying to think of something I can't think of a good example, but it's come back to the porch a few times. Like, do we really want to spend the money on this when we still don't have a front porch? We should be saving for the front porch. And it is easy. It's very easy to buy those things impulsively, especially when you're like a net positive with your budget. And you're going to buy it over Amazon with a credit card that you don't even have to touch, because your credit card number or just your bank account number, your debit card, your account information is already in there. You don't actually have
Very convenient.
You don't have to physically look at money and look at it and say, do I want this,
Right.
or do I want this thing on Amazon that I just found through an Instagram ad, and I've convinced myself in a matter of 5 minutes that I should spend this money on it, and it makes it that easy. So, but every time you say no to that, it is a little, you do have this little victory, and you see, it's that it is a good feeling. And even though like you're still in the same position you were before that run-in, but knowing that you made that responsible choice. And
Right. I have a practical application for Amazon.
oh yeah,
And that is when I'm shopping on Amazon, I put things in the cart, but I don't ever buy it right then. It sits there probably for 24 hours at least. And then more times than not, I will go back and not get, get whatever I thought I needed.
I have a lot of things in my saved for later,
Right.
just stacked up down there. So
You have to take the check mark off of go straight to checkout. What is that little check mark?
oh
one
yeah,
click.
the buy
One click
buy
setting.
it now
Yeah.
or
Don't
whatever.
do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah. No, I have the one-click settings turned off, but
Yeah. So yeah.
they do.
think about it.
They've figured out how to make it as easy and convenient and as painless as possible, right?
Right.
So,
It's true.
yeah. So one other kind of point that I just like to reinforce is that when I'm saving money, it can look like, and it can be, one of the things we have to guard against is just what can become the selfish nature of saving money, right? So saving money can be for me, and hopefully it's not, and it can look like it's for me, but really if I have this perspective that I am managing somebody else's belongings, something that belongs to somebody else, then it can reflect, my willing to be a conservationist when it comes to that, which I think that's one of the great, I think, callings of a person that's living for God. One of the God honoring things that we do with our lives is we don't take for granted, and we don't just waste, and we don't thoughtlessly allow to just, float into the ethos, the stuff that God puts within our control and within our management. Like, we are supposed to conserve it. We're not supposed to be the picture of that hungry consumer that's just grossly consuming inordinate amounts of stuff.
Right.
There's a beauty to, and I think we're seeing a pretty big return and a renaissance of the life of simplicity,
Right.
right? Of living the simpler life. I don't need a yard full of all these different things that I can only use that once a year or that a couple times a year. But, people are scaling down.
tiny homes.
Tiny homes. Yeah. Yeah. That would really try your relationship. So,
Good. Yeah, don't do it. don't do it. No, but the idea of simplicity too, I think you can only be a glutton and overindulgence of things for so long before you get sick of it. It's too much pressure. Plus there's all of the time it takes to manage those things, So I think you can get even burn out on it.
right.
It loses its luster because it takes work to manage those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think going back to what you said about being God honoring is that I feel like it honors God, and I feel like he loves to see that we have discipline. He doesn't need our money. He doesn't need us to make all this money to give to the church. He doesn't need that, but he desires for us to live practically so that discipline honors him. We have purpose behind it, and that purpose is to honor God, not to get more things or to save for retirement, although that's important too. But, I feel like that honors him in the discipline of it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's a good segue into just kind of one more thing I want to talk about this. And I had shared just some words of caution when it comes to saving. Some of the things that if we're committed to saving, whether it's something that we've been committed to for a long time, or if it's something that we really want to start up, there are some areas, there are some warning signs that we just have to be careful of, because it's very easy to get out of the mindset and the mode that I am managing this for somebody else and not for myself. And so some of the things we talked about, and as I kind of rattle these off, maybe you could share what you feel like might be your biggest struggle, or just what's the biggest threat to how you view the money that God's kind of put in your control. So one would be fear, right? Saving out of fear. And it's I want to insulate myself against any potential problems of the future. And we talked about how in the world, the recommendation would be save as much as you can. There's no number that's too much, right? Save as much as you can. There's really little thought for such things as generosity and giving, like giving stuff away. It's the primary responsibility you have is to take care of yourself. And who knows what could go wrong? Like, who knows what catastrophic things might happen to you as the years go on. And so save as much as you can. Greed, for sure. That's the turning this thing on its head. And now I'm saving for myself. I'm hoarding for myself. Does it seem weird to you that there are people out there that have billions and billions of dollars? I mean, it just baffles my mind. I don't know, the desire or the willingness, and I get it's all relative, right? I mean, somebody who has way less money than I do might look at me and say, "How could you have that much money?" I doubt it'd be hard to find those people, but here we are as like regular, normal, average Joes. And I think everybody would agree that like there's some people with crazy money that they could never ever spend, they could never use. So like, what's the purpose of even holding on to it? There's this thing called greed that we have to be careful of. Negligence, right? Negligence is probably if you're saving, this might not be as much of a challenge because you are putting some purpose and intention into how you're managing your money. Idolatry, which is putting that savings account before God, putting that retirement account before God, seeing that thing as your protector, as your security for the future. We talked about robbery, which sort of, in other words, I'd say is just a misallocation of what God has put in our hands. Like, God has given us what we have. We are custodians. We are stewards of that. And as such, there are some instructions that we're supposed to follow with how we manage that, right? We get a lot of opportunity and choice and freedom with what we do with our money. And we don't live under this legalistic code that says you must do this or God is going to strike you down. But there certainly are some guiding principles as far as our giving, our generosity, our saving, our blessing others, like all that stuff. Gambling or risky ventures, right? We kind of talked about one of those proverbs that reminds us that the get rich quick schemes, the easy way to riches.
Does this mean we can't go to Vegas?
Probably is not
Can
the
I
best
take
way
a road
to do
trip
it.
to Vegas?
Yeah, I mean,
for our retirement.
Are you good at counting cards? 'Cause that works for a little while, I guess, until you get kicked out. So, and then the last one is autonomy, which I'll start this part of the conversation and just say this is probably, the thing that I had to be most cautious against. I mean, I would love for nothing more than to be what's the term? Financially independent. Financial independence. Can you imagine?
See how he glows when he says
yeah, it's like just like what if in the banks under Josh Parison's name there was just enough money that I didn't give a care in the world about what was going on because I know that I am all covered. I'm taken care of, and I don't have to go to work. I don't have to rely on somebody else for a paycheck. I can just kind of do whatever I want. If I want to work, I'll work. If I don't, I don't.
Yeah, I'll have to say that one struck me more than any. Just the idea that we have enough, we're doing okay. So it is easy to have that feeling of not needing help, not needing spiritual help in that area, which, is a kind of a dangerous place to be. So that one I'm kind of wrestling with a little bit. How do I view that? How do I view where we are, financially, and also curtailing that idea of just I guess it feels like isolation, like isolating that part of our lives from God.
Yeah, like there's no
Yeah.
faith required anymore.
Yeah.
Right. Which
exactly. We're not living from just
Yeah.
month to month. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So that's a thing.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
thing
So
to
how do you
consider.
how do you figure out how faith is supposed to still inform and guide that area of your life when it's all said? I mean, that's a big challenge when it comes to faith in general.
Right.
It's like, well, if you're in a place where you don't depend on God, it's easy to forget him.
Right. Right.
It's
It
easy
is.
to not need him. So
Yeah. So that's a door that that you opened. Thank you very much, Josh.
You're welcome.
And now I need to kind of look in there a little bit and kind of feel that out. And
well,
see.
we're going to close the podcast with an altar call. We'll let you come forward and we'll lay hands on you and pray for you. So that's good. Jim?
I don't think I was nearly as far along in my financial journey as you or Karen, but something that I have.
Jim saying, I'm not as old as you
I
guys.
know. I think
so.
you just totally called me an old lady.
Gosh, I'm not retired yet. I'll just say that. Okay. Something that I've always tried to be cautious of, as I've moved around. I've had a lot of different jobs, and not a lot of different jobs, but I've sort of hopped from one job to another as opportunities have presented themselves in my own journey, which could be a separate podcast all in and of itself if anybody cared. But while I was on this journey to be where I'm at right now, sitting here, I worked for a lot of different places, and it was always just kind of like trying to get to this next standard of living, and always reaching for the next standard of living, or getting, always looking for more. And there was an element of that which was fun, because I was trying to just what do you call it? To raise the standard of living for my family. But it was always like put this virtue, like I made that sort of this virtue above everything else, and it ended up with us or myself making decisions that put us beyond our means. When in fact, like that standard of living that we had, that God was providing us with, was always just fine. It was nothing, we were very well taken care of relative to, the kind of positions that we thought we were in. And so that's, and the same thing goes when I'm thinking about retirement or anything like that. It's like, I try to keep everything down, grounded. Like, what do we really need? Why are we really making the decisions that we're making? Right. And so it's, we live in a world where that's the big thing is, climbing that ladder, or, buying getting somewhere else by the end of your life. And it's just sort of like, there are good things and bad things that can come with that. And like you said, there's some dangers if you just start making that a god in of itself, right. Just advancing and always looking for, trying to get more and more and more. So.
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, that's great stuff. A lot of comments coming through, Karen, about how insightful you are. So thank you so much for sharing.
Everybody will be that old at some point. Yeah. So my son says, "Thank you for the aged wisdom, Mom. I mean, saged wisdom." There you go.
That's great. So we'll probably set you up with a little area on Sunday morning. People can come and ask their questions and get some more specific advice.
There we go.
We'll do that.
That's good. All right. So let's kind of take a little turn from that. Talk about some of what kind of came through on these videos. We didn't get a chance to talk about it last week, but one of the things I wanted to just highlight that I saw coming out of, for those of you that are watching the Road Trip to Truth series, we were looking at videos 6 and 7, or 5 and 7, 6 and 7, 6 and 7 this week. I can never remember the numbers, but one of the topics that came up that I find kind of fascinating and is a buzzword, I feel like today, is this idea of agnosticism, which I feel like 25 years ago, if you
Nobody knew what that meant.
nobody knew what that meant,
Right.
right? That was not a thing. And now it seems to have risen to this place of prominence in our culture today. And I think the video, I don't know if the video brought it out or I saw this somewhere else, but a lot of the reason for that, I think, is that it's growing in popularity is because it seems on its surface like a really, really humble place. So for those of you maybe that don't know, agnosticism is the idea that we can't really know things. So when it comes to this battle between did a creator create the universe, or did everything or does everything that exists, did it just come out of not purely material and natural processes, right? So that's the big question between a theistic worldview and an atheistic worldview. And so a lot of people say, I'm gonna hang out in the middle on that one, right? Because I don't know.
Right.
And it, again, on the surface, looks like a really, really humble approach to say, well, I'm not going to hold to some dogmatic view that any God, certainly not the God of the Bible, but that any God has created the universe. And yet I'm not quite ready to say that there is a purely physical or materialistic explanation for everything it is, because that feels like a stretch as well. And so I'm not going to take a side. I feel like that's a really, really challenging thing for the church, to kind of have to speak into this world, right? Because what I believe we want to help bring to people in the proclamation of the gospel is some certainty in this uncertain world, in this uncertain universe. The certainty, first of all, that God is madly in love with the people he's created, right? Like that's something I believe God wants us to be certain of. And that there is, for even the most hopeless person in the world, a person that feels as far from hopeful as you can possibly be because of the circumstances and the experiences of their lives, I believe God wants us to be certain that there's a reason for hope.
Right. I feel like that, first of all, and I probably sound judgy in saying this, but I think that's such a very lazy, a spiritually lazy attitude or thing to have.
Sure.
Because you don't have to make a choice. You don't have to decide, you just want to be in limbo out there. You don't want to make a choice or a decision. So therefore you don't have to think about right living. You don't have to think about other people, because who really knows? But I think, and what's been brought out frequently in these videos is that we all do know, there's laws of, God is in nature. God is in our conscience. Like we know the difference between right and wrong.
He's like inscribed in our hearts.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. And to not be attuned to that or to deny that part of ourselves, I think, one, it's sad. And two, there are so many other things that we will go the extra mile to learn about and understand. There are so many causes out there that people will just, pick apart to the point where they become all in to that cause because they know so much about it. So, to say, no, I don't know about God, I'm not gonna go there. I think that's lazy on their part. Yeah.
Jim, you've probably walked through that to some degree, right? I mean, at kind of some point in your life, you had to make a decision that.
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean,
different from where you were, and
yeah, I mean, I'd say I'd say in my high school years before I was a Christian, I may have described myself as an agnostic.
If
Maybe
you knew the word, that would have been great, right?
I bet I did.
Yeah, you
I
probably
don't know.
did.
Maybe I
You're a
didn't.
pretty smart guy.
I have no idea. I'm sure at one point or another I probably said I was an atheist. Just really without even having looked into it or thought about it. Just and and for somebody, and I was in my youth, but for somebody that was saying those sorts of things and just in conversation, I wasn't in any sort of like atheist group where we went out and just tried to tear down Christians or something like that, or whatever might be out there. But if I was asked, or if it was brought up in conversation, that's probably how I would have answered. And I think I can remember a couple specific instances of that with friends that I still have where I did say those sort of things. And it was just simply a friend, and I think it was my 10th or 11th grade art class, sort of just holding me to that and asking me like, well, do you even know who Jesus is? And it's, yeah, he was supposed to be the Son of God and the Romans killed him. Like, and he kind of walked me through the consequences of that and how Jesus paid for our sins and and it clicked for me. And I feel like so many times we just, we move straight past that into the arguments that we can get into with people. And just, it was, I mean, yeah, to answer your question, yes, I have walked through that sort of thing before. And I think a lot of people, especially some of those kids in the videos, where they say, yeah, I don't think truth really is anything. Your truth is your truth. My truth is my truth. Many of them just haven't been held accountable to that that sort of thinking, and they're insulated in the academia or their friend circles or whatever it is that just sort of just lives in that zone unquestioned because it's easier to be there. It's easier to exist there because, like you said, there's no consequences. The standard can just be whatever the standard is. Whatever's popular is what the standard is. Yeah.
So how do you help somebody else to understand what you feel like is certain in your heart, right? Because that's really, I think, one of the things that's at issue here is we live, hopefully with a level of certainty, which personally, my take on the society and the culture we live on is certainty is frowned upon, right? Like for such things as cannot be proven through the scientific method, say, like that's the only thing that we're supposed to be certain about. Like it's okay to be certain about mathematics, and it's okay to be certain about maybe the physical laws of the universe as we can observe them and prove them and blah, blah, blah. But everything else outside of that, whether it is some cognitive understanding of God, whether it is a view of morality, just some of these other things that might be considered to fall in a very subjective category, certainty is frowned upon. Like, don't impose your certainty on me because it sounds judgmental. It sounds proud, right? You even said, it's like, this might sound judgy, but here, let me just tell you this judgy thing I'm thinking.
Let me just judge you.
Exactly. It's certainty does not carry the commonly understood virtue of tolerance, all that stuff. But as a follower of Jesus, with what from scripture appears to be a mandate to share God's hope with people. Right. Like, are we supposed to be sharing some gospel that, hey, Karen, let me tell you how it could be. Right? Like this, I'm not sure, but this might be how it works, right? Like God might be out there. God might love you. God might have sent his son to die for you. I mean, at least
I'm convinced.
That's what I'm banking on.
You're convincing me.
And I would love for you to just jump in this life with me.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy to me compared to the belief, what the Bible describes as saving faith in Jesus Christ, that his death was efficacious for my redemption and for being brought back into a relationship with my Heavenly Father. And now the Holy Spirit of God dwells in me and empowers me to live a life that honors and glorifies him.
Yeah.
And I feel certain of that. And that, Karen, is what I want for you to experience as well.
Thank you, Josh.
You're
I
welcome.
would like to experience that as well. I think there's so much shouting going on right now. Everybody is shouting at each other. You know, you have to see it my way. You need to see it. You need to see it this way. And if you don't see it this way, then you're wrong. You know, there's no space for discussion. And so with all of that shouting, I feel like what is heard the loudest is genuine people. I mean, genuine acts of love, you know, caring for someone, listening, you know, just listening, even though you may totally disagree with everything that's being said, but genuinely listening, you know, hearing another person. I think that speaks louder than anything. And what comes to mind is, Elijah in the cleft of the rock, where, you know, the loud wind comes and, you know, all of the turbulence that happens, but then he hears God speak to him in this small, quiet voice. And I think that in our current culture, just that quiet, genuine caring for people that God brings across your path. I don't necessarily think it's from a soapbox or from a, you know, old style evangelism things that we used to do. It's, you know, it's got to be that love. And I mean, and Jesus even said that too, you'll know us by our love,
Right.
You know, and if that is not what's being heard, then we're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can't say, look, this is what the Bible says. You have to believe this. They're not going to hear it over their own, you know,
Right.
loud talk. So
Yeah, we talked about it earlier today. Just this question of like, how did Jesus do it?
yes.
You know, I mean, I'm just absolutely confounded and wish that like there was some kind of training seminar that Jesus was conducting. That, you know, how much money would you be willing to pay a registration fee to find out like how did Jesus do ministry? Like,
Well,
how
I mean-
did he figure out how to be among, you know, people that were so unlike him and so far from him, and at the same time allow them to feel the weight of their lives and their choices, but also at the very same time, like the hope of redemption that could come through him. Like, how did he melt all of that and in such a beautiful way? Like, if we could figure out how to do that, it would just change everything,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, something that when I think about these things, I try to remind myself that if we're talking about evangelism or just having an answer for people or meeting people where they are, and of course, no one could do it better than Jesus did. And not everybody heard Jesus. Jesus didn't have a 100% success rate with the people that he was speaking to, and that's we have free will.
Absolutely.
And so I try not to get too wrapped up in the how, whereas just trying to just do my best to exist in the space that you describe, with just loving people, listening to people, but not sugarcoating anything or hiding what I'm convicted to be the truth of the gospel. And then just allowing for that space to either, you know, a lot of the heart of heart and grace of the humble. And if you know, somebody just wants to argue, then, you know, they're not. You can tell pretty quick if somebody isn't really interested in finding truth, but just interested in trying to win arguments. And you can either walk away from that, or you can, if you've got other people that are there that are listening to both sides, you know, you can walk through an argument and try to win the heart, you know, win people over for Jesus that are witnessing that. But I think something that we do look over when we get focused in on the mechanics of there, where does morality come from, and truth and everything else. And that's all very important stuff that we need to know our way around, because we need to know why we believe what we believe and where that comes from and where our rights come from and all those things. But I think that we need to prepare ourselves more to be able to show the value of our faith to people and show them what is the value of hearing what I have to say, besides just trying to prove to you I'm right and you're wrong, or you need to believe this and here's the evidence for it. But what is the value of that, and the personal value of it, and not only the truth of the gospel and the saving power of Jesus Christ, which ultimately is the importance of the gospel, but just the being able to show people the value that it's had in our lives and how that has affected us and our relationships and our self-worth as human beings, as being children of God. And sometimes I don't think we do a very good job of that. I know I haven't in the past.
That's great. All right, well, we're out of time. So, I mean, I feel like we could be doing this for a lot longer. This has really been great, a lot of fun. So thank you guys both for joining me tonight. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do it again real soon.
Okay.
So, all right. But thank you for those of you joining us, either now or maybe watching it later on. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the night, day, week, wherever you may find yourself. We'll be back here next Wednesday night for Prime Time. Thanks to Shayna for producing tonight. Thank you, Shayna.
Thank you, Shayna.
Great job. And thanks to the kids for cheering us on.
Yeah,
that was great
that was
tonight,
great.
right? Like we had all this
Did you play on that?
applause. I didn't. So it was just so good that they were
I'm
taking
sure they
it all
were
in.
listening to everything.
I'm
that
sure
we
they
were
were.
saying.
So, all right, we'll see you again next Wednesday night. Have a great week.